The case. Erol Morkoç is a spokesperson for the group Republicans Overseas. Erol, hello to you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, how do you react to what we've seen over the past 2 or 3 hours?
Well, I think it's a little bit of Sun Tzu. I mean, Donald Trump, played his cards exactly how he intended. And in the end, we have a very exciting situation where 75 countries sort of pass this loyalty litmus test, and they will be dealt with very favorably on these terms. And countries that decided to try to put punitive tariffs on the United States, totally legitimate reciprocal tariffs, will now have to face the music for that, as Trump had said from the beginning.
Hang on, Errol, that was the big plan all along. It was a loyalty litmus test. It was a statement to try and see who would panic first. And that, for example, I mean, I'll just add to that, Errol. The White House have put a post on social media on X tonight in capital letters: "Do not retaliate, and you will be rewarded." So all this, the chaos on the markets, trillions wiped off the stocks and shares, was a loyalty test.
Yeah, I mean, when you say trillions wiped off, I mean, trillions also put back on the single greatest gain day in the stock market history.
But they're still not back where they were.
No, but we're talking about 4.5% down from in the last month. Like, this is a very minor setback. If you zoom out, nobody with any transnational equity is freaking out. There was a lot of people who were maybe concerned that this was going to become a full-fledged trade war, but how could it be when the U.S. is the main buyer? So everybody came to the table. You saw South Korea, Japan came to the table. You saw a lot of countries eager, especially India, thinking that they can supplant China. And then you realize that China put retaliatory tariffs. Now Trump has isolated China, pointed out that they're the bad actor. They've been a currency manipulator. They've been a stealer of IP, and they're responsible for a large part of the American industrial base going abroad. And keep in mind, it's the working class who voted for Donald Trump, who put him in office.
Well, okay. Well, just before we get to that, just going back to your previous assertion that the markets are, the markets tanked and now the markets have come back, so everything's okay. That's the equivalent, is it not, of me driving to your house, knocking it down with a huge wrecking ball, and then building it back a few months later and saying, "Are you all right, Errol? Everything's fine. It's just exactly where you were. It's great. It's life great." Is that what you're saying?
Well, not exactly. 1 in 10 Americans own a relevant amount of stocks. So what we did was put a huge amount of financial pressure on the markets that created a sell-off. But that sell-off was very short-lived, which also was an opportunity for anybody who was a buyer of stocks. If you were a holder of stocks, you really weren't affected other than emotionally.
Okay. All right.
And so that's important to remember. Donald Trump is here for the American worker, for the auto workers union. He's not here for the transnational equity trader.
No, but they all, well, I mean, I don't want to just go on about this, but they all have pensions, don't they, these guys and ladies who work for these firms? And
I'm sure they didn't sell them in the last 48 hours, did they?
Well, the pensions will have taken a hit, believe you me. All right, let's take your point then about the working class. Let's focus on the working class in America. They're going to pay a fortune for goods from China for the next few months, or until this trade war is solved, aren't they? How does that help them?
Unlikely. So if you look at the first set of tariffs Trump put on in his first term, about 20% tariffs, the actual true cost to the American consumer came out just under 1%. Also, there's a provision in this new tariff war, the trade war, that anything on the water as of the day that he announced it is tariff free. So that means you have about 30 to 60 days of goods already in transit. So there won't be any immediate effect. Keep in mind for a few things, America is the largest producer of oil in the world. We're one of the largest producers of food in the world. Almost all these things that people are talking about, we can get domestically as well. Chinese companies can't afford to lose market share, especially to Vietnamese competitors or other countries that have made deals with the Americans. On top of this, American food, like let's use beef, for example. $21 billion of Australian beef came to America. We can't sell any there. If there's tariffs on American beef products, it's going to be sold domestically, and food prices will come down domestically.
But if you're so self-sufficient, Errol, why hasn't that been the case so far then? If you can provide all this food and all the natural resources, why have you been importing things at such great extent?
Yeah, well, it goes back to 1970. As you got off the world went off the gold standard. The U.S. from Bretton Woods until 1970 had been providing this sort of reconstructive financial effort to the world. And then you had the American middle class, which owned the majority of the GDP in 1970. That got decimated by finance and real estate, which then offshored jobs and basically hollowed out the eventual Trump voters that we have today. So I would say, you have to look at Wall Street. You have to look at the fact that American corporations did this to maximize profits. But cheap slave labor making T-shirts for Walmart isn't what the world should be cheering for.
No, well, whatever ethical reservations you have about what happens around the world as far as manufacturing is concerned, let's assume then that suddenly everyone's going to run to start manufacturing goods and making goods in the States. That's not going to happen overnight, is it? That's going to take decades of investment for that to go on. Now, has Donald Trump got the patience for that? Are the working class in America happy to pay a higher price until that is the case? Do you feel this isn't going to happen overnight, is it?
No, it won't happen overnight, but I want to stress that there are many other countries that are willing to make deals with us that we're going to not have tariffs on that supply a lot of goods. America, for example, isn't importing food from China. We're importing a lot of low-end electronics, a lot of widgets and clothing. These things also come from Malaysia, come from India. And I want to stress that the factories we're trying to bring back the means of production in a world that's going automated and mechanized. And as that goes, there's going to be less and less jobs in factories in general. So onshoring production will take time, absolutely. But it's something that this is a critical first step to do, and something we promised, again, the American working class and union voter that we would do.
Yeah, the problem is with things like this and the politics of isolation is that in theory it sounds great, and then the working class see how it might be panning out in practice. The market certainly didn't like it. Chuck Schumer, Erol, who not necessarily you would listen to what Chuck Schumer has to say, the minority Democrat leader in the Senate, but he says Donald Trump is feeling the heat. He's reeling. He's retreating. This is government by chaos. What do you make of that?
I mean, I would tell your listeners to go look up what Chuck Schumer said 10, 15 years ago, asking for tariffs, asking for this protectionism. This is a lot of what Bernie Sanders' policy was, closed border and tariffs. I mean, to protect who? The most vulnerable people in America, the working class, the people who don't have that vote. So I would say that Chuck Schumer has a job to play. He has a role to play as a Democrat there, and he's not going to be giving President Trump any kudos. But this is very much what the Democrat platform was for many years, that Chuck Schumer was in it. So it's disappointing to hear that he's left behind American labor, and it speaks to the fact that American labor has left behind the Democrat Party.
Just a final thought. I mentioned this earlier. Ted Cruz, an erstwhile ally of Donald Trump, Republican senator, says there was a fork in the road. One way was to go to tariffs in perpetuity, and it was a terrible path. Thank goodness he's not taken that path. So there's more relief than anything else than backing Donald Trump's perhaps sound long-term plans here.
I think that, there's definitely relief that Donald Trump was doing something more creative than just a long-term trade war. But a lot of us, myself included, felt that this was going to be something that very quickly was going to become a negotiation. Unlike the last administration, we'd prefer to fight our battles with ledgers and pens and negotiation rather than bullets and drones.
Erol, it's been good to talk to you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Erol Morkoç there, spokesperson for the group Republicans Overseas. You're sending in your thoughts. We'll read some